Teotihuacán is one of the greatest enigmas in world archaeology. A metropolis built without us knowing for certain today the city's original name, the dominant language of its founders, or the identity of its rulers. The name Teotihuacán is Aztec, much later, and is often interpreted as the place where the gods were born, or the place where men become gods. That alone tells you how, centuries after its abandonment, the site was perceived as sacred and beyond human. At its peak, around the 5th century CE, Teotihuacán covered about 20 square kilometers and probably housed between 125,000 and 200,000 people, enormous numbers for the time, making it one of the largest cities of the ancient world. The city's growth begins between the end of the 1st century BCE and the early century CE, reaching full flourishing in the Mesoamerican Classic period. Its urban layout is astonishing. An orderly grid, major ceremonial axes, such as the Avenue of the Dead, monumental pyramids, the sun and the moon, and complexes like the Ciudadela with the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Alongside the great monuments, however, Teotihuacán's true social signature is something else: the enormous residential complexes, often called apartment compounds, which seem to have housed extended communities and work groups, with murals and internal ritual spaces. This urban structure suggests a highly planned form of organization, capable of managing resources, labor, and territorial control on a metropolitan scale. One of the most debated questions is, who were the Teotihuacanos? The most honest answer is that there isn't a single label. Archaeological evidence points to a multi-ethnic, cosmopolitan city with neighborhoods and communities of different origins. A famous example is the Oaxaca barrio, often associated with Zapotec groups, identified through ceramics and funerary practices linked to Oaxaca, and brought to light in a major way thanks to 20th century excavation campaigns. This diversity is not just a folkloric detail. It shows that Teotihuacán functioned as a center of attraction and power, able to integrate or control people and networks from distant regions with enormous economic, political, and cultural consequences. Economically, Teotihuacán is often described as an industrial powerhouse of Mesoamerica. Specialized crafts, large-scale production, and a very wide trade network. A key element was obsidian, a strategic material for blades, tools, and ritual objects. Recent sources also discuss the identification of vast extraction areas and numerous pre-Hispanic pit/mines in the Sierra de las Navajas, Hidalgo, a district known for green obsidian, Pachuca. This fits with the idea that Teotihuacán played a dominant role in the obsidian supply chain, even if each individual extraction site always requires contextual verification, dating, distribution chain, and real political control. Politically, the most famous mystery is the absence of an easily identifiable king, like in classic monarchies. We don't have a list of rulers, we don't have clear inscriptions with royal names and titles, and above all, we still haven't definitively identified a foundational royal tomb comparable to those of other great civilizations. This has led many scholars to propose different models of government: a more collective or corporate power, a multiple elite, or a system in which ideology and institutions mattered more than the individual figure of a ruler. It's one of the reasons Teotihuacán feels so modern. It looks like a superpower without an official biography. Religion permeates everything: architecture, orientations, painting, ritual sacrifices, and offerings. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent, with its sculpted heads and symbolic system linked to water, fertility, war, and cosmology, is one of the places where archaeology has found evidence of extremely intense ritual activity. And it's right here that one of the most sensational discoveries of recent decades comes in. The tunnel beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, discovered in 2003 after heavy rains opened a sinkhole. Exploration was then developed as Proyecto Teotihuacán, with years of excavations, mapping, and artifact recovery. Inside that tunnel, enormous ritual deposits have been documented, tens of thousands of artifacts, with materials including greenstones, shells, animal remains, masks, and symbolically charged objects, as if the tunnel were an underworld stage set, a path toward a sacred heart beneath the pyramid. Among the most iconic finds linked to the tunnel are the so-called yellow spheres, announced as a discovery, suggesting an artificially recreated symbolic celestial or subterranean environment. And in 2015, another report went around the world. The detection of large quantities of liquid mercury in a chamber at the end of the tunnel, an extremely rare element, potentially linked to mythic representations, underworld waters, reflections, ritual lakes. But it also requires great interpretive caution because it does not automatically equal a royal tomb found. The scientific strength is that the tunnel is an archive sealed for centuries. Radiocarbon dating and stratigraphy help place phases of use and deposition, turning a mystery into a verifiable historical sequence. Another area where Teotihuacán continues to surprise is neighborhood archaeology. Not only pyramids, but neighborhood centers, workshops, semi-public spaces, and monumental residences. Recent studies emphasize how social and political life may have been structured around intermediate urban units, neighborhoods, and neighborhood centers, with distributed ritual, economic, and administrative functions. And then there are the murals. Teotihuacán is one of the great pictorial capitals of the ancient world. Modern research no longer focuses only on iconography. It uses analyses of pigments, plasters, and execution techniques to understand production chains, technological choices, and even the circulation of materials and skills. If we talk about the last 200 years of discoveries and studies, Teotihuacán is almost a living handbook of archaeological history. UNESCO notes that the first modern surveys date to 1864, and the first true excavation campaigns to 1884. Between 1905 and 1910, there were major restorations, including the Pyramid of the Sun, with interventions now considered questionable for arbitrary reconstructions. In the early 20th century, Manuel Gamio launched foundational research, and in the second half of the 20th century, mapping and extensive excavation projects changed the scale of knowledge. The focus shifted from isolated monuments to the city as a system. Today, research is interdisciplinary. Remote sensing, materials chemistry, bioarchaeology, isotopes, urban models, and preventive conservation. In recent years, research has also continued with targeted excavations that add valuable details. For example, INA publishes updates on discoveries in ceremonial areas such as the Plaza of the Moon, with large ritual cavities and greenstone monoliths intentionally placed. Elements that reinforce the idea of a city where public space was religiously programmed, with deposits and structures designed for repeated and highly codified ritual acts. Excavation and conservation projects have also continued recently, with research seasons reporting annual results and new structures, stairways, / architectural rearrangements in specific sectors of the site. One fact shows how much remains to be discovered. In a recent popular synthesis, interviewed scholars emphasize that only a small portion of the site has been explored systematically. And then there is the great chapter of the disappearance. Why did Teotihuacán collapse? Here we must clearly separate facts from hypotheses. The strongest archaeological fact is that between the mid to late 6th century and the 7th century, signs of destruction and fires appear in important buildings, especially in the ceremonial core, along with renovations, abandonments, and social changes. This could indicate internal conflicts, revolts against the elite, economic crises, external political pressure, or a combination of factors. Some models also point to environmental stress and drought in the basin of Mexico as part of a broader picture of regional instability. But caution is essential here too. Climate and society intertwine, and a single variable rarely explains everything. In any case, the city does not disappear in a single day. It loses centrality, fragments, many areas are abandoned or reoccupied in different ways, and the political power that sustained it dissolves. Centuries later, other peoples, including the Aztecs, reinterpreted it as a mythical place, amplifying its aura of mystery. That's why Teotihuacán is a perfect topic for a video, because it contains two overlapping stories. The first is the real story of one of the first great metropolises of the Americas, capable of urban planning, technology, art, and economic networks on a continental scale. The second is the story of its enigma, a gigantic city without a certain original name, without clearly identifiable kings, with a still debated collapse, and with recent discoveries, the tunnel, offerings, mercury, ritual deposits that keep opening questions rather than closing them. The final feeling is almost inevitable. Teotihuacan is not only an archaeological site, it is an open laboratory where every new excavation season can change the plot, and where the strongest mysteries are not the fantastical ones, but the historical ones: identity, power, social organization, and the deep reasons why even the greatest cities can fade out.